The truth must be told. We need to know who the real criminals are and who gave them the orders.
Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly to consider bill for national consultations on transition extension today. Liberians express frustrations over electricity rationing by their country's electricity corporation.
The distributors of electricity, but it has to be reliable. LEC will come and we will not switch off the generator because it just became a nuisance. LEC will come for like 20 minutes, 40 minutes.
African Commission recalls low rate of implemented human rights protocols by member states. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Let's begin in Senegal, where at the request of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, a commission to identify and compensate the victims and families affected by the deadly political demonstrations from January 2021 to February 2024 will soon be established. Recall, several people were killed or injured during protests following the arrest of Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, who was then an opposition figure, and the postponement of the presidential election. This decision by the new administration has been welcomed by the association representing victims and the families affected by the deadly demonstrations of March 2021. Imo Edit reports.
For the association, the president's stated intention to identify and compensate the victims and families affected by these deadly political demonstrations marks an initial victory. Abdoulaye Wadr serves as its president.
L'indemnisation, c'est le président sortant qui devrait le faire. Donc, ça nous a pas surpris que Monsieur le Président de la République, le nouveau président.
The initiative of the president is laudable.
Les familles des victimes, surtout les morts de mars 2021. Bon, on est très content sur ces décisions.
The association urged the commission responsible for this exercise to collaborate with human rights organizations, including Amnesty International Senegal, which has been supporting the victims and families affected by these events.
Ils ont annoncé beaucoup de victimes. Il y a des gens qui n'ont pas de papier.
Many victims have not been documented. Some people were buried without autopsy, so it's going to be difficult.
Les victimes, ils doivent travailler avec Amnesty parce qu'il y a beaucoup de familles qui ont allé chez Amnesty pour déposer leur plainte.
While the association has welcomed the announcement of the Commission's establishment, it also hopes that legal proceedings will follow.
We need to know who the real criminals are and who gave them the orders. So we have to get to the bottom of the case.
Recall the demonstrations from March 2021 to February 2024 related to the arrests of the now Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, an opposition figure at that time, resulted in dozens of deaths and injuries as captured by various human rights organizations.
Imo Edit with that report. Meanwhile, at least 13 people are reported dead and 40 injured in a car accident in the central of Senegal. The incident occurred at around 7 p.m. Thursday on National Road number 1 near the village of Yamong, where a public transport bus overturned. Meanwhile, the accident survivors have been treated with support from the authorities. In Burkina Faso, the Legislative Assembly of the Transition is meeting today to consider a bill on organizing national consultations. If adopted, this bill will bring the nation's key stakeholders together in the coming days to decide whether to extend the ongoing transition. The transition is currently scheduled to conclude in July 2024. Oge Oberika has the details.
In its announcement for today's plenary session, the Legislative Assembly of the Transition clarifies that the bill under consideration does not directly revise the Transition Charter, but rather authorizes the convening of national consultations. These consultations will determine whether to extend the transition, which is set to end in July 2024. With 3 months remaining under the deadline, if the law is passed, the nation's key stakeholders will be called upon to make the final decision. The Legislative Assembly of the Transition emphasizes its rights to do so under Article 19 of the Transition Charter, which grants the initiative for revising the Charter to both the President of the Transition and 1/3 of the members of the Legislative Assembly of the Transition. Will the transition be extended? Supporters of Captain Ibrahim Traore have been advocating for this extension for several months. They believe that the military authorities require sufficient time to achieve their primary objective, defeating the terrorist threat.
Oge Oberika reporting there. Ghana's Electoral Commission has denied allegations made by the National Democratic Congress NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama regarding the appointment of returning officers for the upcoming 2024 polls. In a recent interview at the London School of Economics and Political Science, Mr. Mahama accused the new Patriotic Party government of appointing its members to the Electoral Commission, citing concerns over the impartiality of the Commission in the upcoming elections. WADR's Nadedititi reports from Accra.
Responding to the allegations of the former president and flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama, the Deputy Director of Research for the Electoral Commission, Fred Tete, via a statement dated April 25, dismissed Mr. Mahama's allegations and criticized him for condemning practices he himself had employed during his term in office. The Electoral Commission clarified that the recruitment process for returning officers and their deputies was conducted fairly and transparently. Contrary to Mr. Mahama's assertion, the Commission emphasized that all interested Ghanaians were invited to apply for these positions through a public announcement in the Daily Graphic newspaper on February 5, 2024. The Commission received an overwhelming response with 20,561 applications submitted. The statement added that an in-house committee was tasked with shortlisting suitable applicants for interviews. The statement further disclosed that successful applicants had at least 8 years of working experience with the Commission as temporal election officials. The EC, in conclusion, firmly rejected Mr. Mahama's claim that New Patriotic Party members were favored in the selection process, reaffirming its commitment to conducting free and fair elections in Ghana.
That's Nadedititi with that report. In Mauritania, former President Mohamed Abdelaziz intends to run in the upcoming presidential election in June. Despite being sentenced to 5 years in prison for abuse of power, a political party has been formed to support his candidacy. A debate has now arisen regarding his eligibility. Many are asking if the candidacy of former Mauritanian President Mohamed Abdelaziz will be valid even though the judiciary has convicted him. One of his lawyers, Taleb Kaya, answers in the affirmative.
Il y a une différence entre les ennuis judiciaires et la privation des droits civiques.
There's a distinction to be made between 10 years of deprivation of civil rights and the fact that he is arbitrarily detained, which does not prevent him from exercising his civil rights. Secondly, he does not consider the judgment rendered against him to be legally valid because it was flawed. Therefore, he believes he still possesses all his civil rights and can present himself, even though his detention does not legally prevent him from doing so. To be deprived of this civil right, a judgment must take precedence over it. If an appeal is made, this judgment is considered null and void.
Sur le plan constitutionnel, c'est que certains soutiennent que le président ne peut pas se représenter, il ne peut se représenter qu'une seule fois. Mais cet article de la
He can therefore present himself on a constitutional level, which is supported by an article of the Constitution that the President cannot ignore. However, if this article is not even preventive, it cannot be applied. I hope that his application will be accepted. If his application is not accepted for any reason, we will examine the consequences.
On avisera, on verra quelle est la stratégie juridique à adopter.
Taleb Kaya is one of the lawyers representing former Mauritanian President Mohamed Abdelaziz.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now, the United States is planning a temporary withdrawal of some of its troops from Chad, according to U.S. officials. This move comes just days after Washington was forced to agree to remove its troops from neighboring Niger. Earlier this month, Chad's Air Force chief ordered the U.S. to halt activities at an air base near the capital in N'Djamena. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Patrick Ryder stated that a portion of the U.S. troops in Chad would reposition out of the country as a temporary step as part of an ongoing review of security cooperation with Chad, which would resume after the country's May 6 presidential election. Until now, Chad has been a key partner for Western and regional militaries in the fight against a violent Islamist insurgency in neighboring West Africa. However, the country has become increasingly central to Western security strategy in the region since neighboring Niger kicked out French troops after its junta seized power in a coup last year, following similar moves by military-led Mali and Burkina Faso. There have been mixed reactions in the Gambia following the Taliban-led Afghan government's request to attend the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, set to be held in the Gambia next month. While others question the legitimacy of the Taliban, others feel it's an opportunity to engage them in a dialogue to promote unity. Sankule Janko in Banjul has more details in this report.
The Taliban has made a surprising request to the Gambian government asking for attendance at the upcoming International Islamic Cooperation OIC summit scheduled to take place in the Gambia next month. The unexpected move comes amidst ongoing efforts by the Taliban to gain international recognition. WDR saw the reaction of Gambians on this development.
As far as the country is a member to the organization that is the OIC, I mean, they should be welcome to attend the OIC as far as they don't have any threat to our national security or anything that has to do with jeopardizing the event. So, well, I don't have any objection to that.
I believe it's a perfect opportunity to have a dialogue on the ways forward with regards to the current happening in Afghanistan. And or not including them means you're telling them to continue with what they are doing because you are trying to discriminate them. And in such, they will continue with their aggressive activities.
This invitation underscores the Taliban's efforts to gain diplomatic recognition and legitimacy on the international stage. The Gambian government's response to this request could have significant implications for regional diplomacy and ongoing efforts to stabilize Afghanistan amidst the Taliban's rule. Political analyst Ehsan Jai says, although Taliban's legitimacy in itself has implications, that does not take away Afghanistan's right as a country to be recognized, adding the attendance of Afghanistan is beyond the Gambia.
In my opinion, it's beyond the Gambia. Let's be technical here. Beyond the Gambia in the sense that Afghanistan is a member of the OIC, even though Gambia is hosting this summit, but Afghanistan is a member of the OIC. And the issue here is Afghanistan as a country, which is recognized as an independent state, while the Taliban government is not recognized by countries of the world and international organizations. The Taliban participating in the OIC summit on behalf of Afghanistan does not necessarily translate to Gambia recognizing the Taliban government as the legitimate government of Afghanistan.
The Gambia's response and Afghans' participation in the summit will be closely watched as the world navigates the complexities of engaging with the new Afghan leadership. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
Let's now cross over to Nigeria, where motorists are lamenting the sudden scarcity of fuel, leading to the return of long queues at the fuel filling stations that are selling petrol in Abuja and neighboring states. What started gradually on Wednesday evening when some of the filling stations started shutting down after dispensing the stock they had left escalated throughout Thursday as many commuters and workers were stranded as a result of the lack of petrol. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usma Umara reports.
Petrol shortages in Abuja and neighboring states worsened yesterday, leaving commuters and motorists stranded. Few filling stations had petrol, and black marketers hiked prices to 1,500 naira per litre, up from 1,000 naira the day before. Major marketers' stations in the city centre and suburbs were operating, but independent marketers' stations were closed. Here are some motorists who, like many other citizens, are puzzled by the current situation.
So I don't know. I just see everywhere no fuel. I came from Kaduna Road. Everywhere there's some of them blocking their police station. As you see and I saw with the car, we just pray for God. May God help us more to get masses for Nigeria.
I don't really know. That is what is tiring us. We are tired. We don't know what is happening. For us to have a fuel scarcity this time around is what we don't understand. And they said they remove fuel subsidy. We don't expect this to happen to us in this country anymore. The only thing is federal government should do something.
I don't even know why they kill, but I just come and meet kill. Here is more better than the area I live.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC, has announced that the issues causing the fuel shortages have been resolved. They cited logistical problems that have now been addressed. This is the first time a scarcity of this magnitude has been experienced since President Bola Tinubu announced the removal of fuel subsidies on the day he was sworn in on May 29, 2023. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The Victims Association of Senegal's deadly demonstrations welcomes plan to establish a commission to determine compensation. Burkina Faso's Transitional Assembly to consider bill for national consultations on transition extension today. Liberians express frustrations over electricity rationing by their country's electricity corporation. The African Commission records low rate of implemented human rights protocols by member states. We also have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Now, Liberians are frustrated by the widespread electricity rationing imposed by their country's electricity corporation. Over the last few months, the nation has experienced extensive load shedding, which is adversely affecting the population, especially business people. WADR's Darlington Pokwa has a report.
The Electricity Corporation previously informed the public that its decision is supported by the rise in energy consumption, a factor that has directly affected the supply of available energy. Therefore, the corporation deems it necessary to institute new measures to meet the needs of all its customers with limited load shedding, presenting it as a so viable alternative. However, these electricity consumers believe that the massive load shedding by the Electricity Corporation has not only undermined the expansion of the country's economy, but also led to the destruction of perishable goods.
Use electricity because it's only available to 6% of the population. The distributors of electricity, but it has to be reliable. LEC will come and we will not switch off the generator, because it just became a nuisance. LEC will come for like 20 minutes, 40 minutes.
And so I believe what is required today is to target certain industries, certain companies, and build out power lines to supply those specific areas for now. In the end, it will cover everybody.
To the disbelief of these consumers, the head of LEC, Money Captain, says neighboring Ivory Coast has notified Liberia about the reduction of its supply of electricity due to some challenges.
Right now, we're getting only 20% of the capacity we're receiving just 2 weeks ago. So from 50 megawatts, it has been dropped to 10 megawatts, and that is because the generation assets in Côte d'Ivoire, they have difficulties with them. So their generators are down, and they're facing challenges with supplying their customers. So Liberia was reduced to 10, Guinea to 8, and Sierra Leone to 7. So even of the three countries, we're getting the most, but it's still only 10 megawatts, which is seriously impacting our ability to meet our load. And unfortunately for us, we get this notice on a daily basis on how much they're allocating. So we can't even plan for the next week.
For now, many businesses are reverting to purchasing private generators as a means to keep the flow of electricity regular. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pokpa in Monrovia.
Energy directors of ECOWAS member states have held discussions on green hydrogen for the benefit of the sub-region. The discussion was convened by the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency and the West Africa Science Services Center on Climate Change and Adaptive Land Use. It took place in Praia, the Cape Verdean capital, on April 24 and the 25th, 2024. ECOWAS regional strategy and green hydrogen action plans highlight the need to strengthen the knowledge of different stakeholders, namely entrepreneurs, financial institutions, government representatives, and investors. The plans aim to improve member states' understanding of green hydrogen production and technologies, industrial challenges, and opportunities for key stakeholders in the energy sector within the sub-region.
Politics, Analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Since Liberian President Joseph Boakai came to power in January 2024, his government has been facing a series of challenges. It has either been the alleged discovery of over 70,000 illegal civil servants in the government system, dismissal of 300 personnel of the elite security service known as the Executive Protective Service, or the Supreme Court's ruling against the president's blatant violation of illegally removing officials from tenured positions. The most concerning now is the extensive rationing of electricity supply across Monrovia, the capital city, and its environs. Major businesses, including ordinary citizens and the working population, are expressing frustration about the effect of the constant load shedding. Mobad Johnson is the president of the Civil Servants Association of Liberia. He anchors the citizens' frustration.
The civil servants, by and large, the public sector workers, which includes teachers, health workers, as well as ordinary civil servants. It's affecting us given the low income that we are earning every month in terms of wages. It's something troubling for us, actually. And the other frustration is that we are a sovereign government, a sovereign country. Almost year in, year out, we are depending on another country to feed us with power. We think it is not really good for our economy and for us as citizens in this country, especially low-income earners in this part of the world.
What impact would this load shedding have on the Liberian economy?
It affects every facet of the economy, ranging from even a healthcare provider, as well as former civil servants. We ourselves who come to work, sometimes we are faced with inconveniences. We do not have electricity to work with effectively in our bureau offices. We do not have a better ventilation. So it's actually affecting every facet of the economy, every facet of the society is affecting us.
But President Joseph Boakai paid a high-level visit to Cote d'Ivoire in March this year and met with President Alassane Ouattara regarding transmission of electricity from Cote d'Ivoire to Liberia through the CLSG project. How has this visit been realized in the country?
Well, the visit, we don't think it yield that much result because as soon as our president came back from that visit in Abidjan or in Africa Coast, we realized that the Ivorians themselves started experiencing major power default in their own country, for which they have to cut, almost more than 80% of the power that they were providing Liberia. They have to cut it down massively. So President Boakai's visit did not use that much result, though the commitment was made to him by his counterpart, Alassane Ouattara. But as soon as they came, we learned that the Ivorians themselves are experiencing major power default.
What can the government do to address the citizens' frustration about the extensive load shedding now in the country?
Government have to now move swiftly, either partnering with the World Bank or the African Development Bank to have, even if it calls that they have to source another area where, for example, they will generate a power from by establishing a hydro. Liberia is blessed with so many rivers. So if only our government can put in place the necessary mechanism into play, we think by building hydro, bringing new turbines to beef up the already, or even the solar panel. I think you have our international partners are around, Chinese are around, the Japanese are around, Koreans are around, even the Americans, they are around. If only you can partner with those people and be genuine about it. And two, to have a lasting solution to the whole power default in our country, we think the sector should be privatized. It should be given to private operators, and they can provide electricity and even water. As we speak, there is a shortage of water in our city.
Mobad Johnson is the president of the Civil Servants Association of Liberia. Here is Sankule Janko with the sports news.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Nigeria Football Federation is expected to announce the name of the new Super Eagles head coach in the coming hours and in the weeks-long search for their successor to Jose Peseiro. According to Sokonaut.g, the NFF has taken its time to decide whether to continue with the tradition of hiring a foreign coach or appoint an indigenous handler for the Super Eagles. The NFF's technical committee favored the appointment of a European coach, with 3 shortlisted names reported to include former Manchester City assistant manager Dominic Torrent and current Fortuna Sittard boss Danny Bugis, presented to the NFF. according to media reports. Emmanuel Amanuke, who has been appointed on the interim basis, is also believed to be on the list of coaches who could be appointed for the permanent job. Nigeria was led by Jose Pereiro to the AFCON finals, where they won silver during the competitions. And the CAF Interclub Competitions and Management of the Club Licensing System Committee met to deliberate on the incident during the Total CAF Confederation Cup first leg final fixture between USM Alger and RS Barkan that was scheduled on 21 April 2022. The CAF Interclub Competitions Committee and Management of the Club Licensing Committee decided to sanction USM Alger with a forfeit of 0-3 to submit the case to the disciplinary board for possible additional sanctions, and the second leg finishes between RS Barkan and USM Alger at the Barkan Municipal Stadium on the 28th April 2024 is maintained. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and David Vincent for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. We also stream live on YouTube at WADR. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.